Tactical Air War Server launched its new campaign a couple of weeks ago, and the Hydra Squadron decided to fly for the Germans this time around. Now, in the last campaign we fought for the Russians, and it's really fascinating to see how diverse the experience is flying for the Germans or the Russians on the server. The Russians, you always feel like you're on your last set of planes. You never really feel like you have enough reserves to keep the Germans at bay, and you really have to scramble to keep them from destroying your airfields and ground troops. With the Germans, it's very different. I have at the moment a full hangar or near full hangar, and it really feels like I have the planes. The problem is we don't have the numbers. The Germans have been suffering quite a lot in the recent days, and as such you see a little bit of footage here with Sheriff and me attacking a Russian airfield, hoping to stem the tide. Now sadly the flak was actually quite accurate there. You see a little shell hit me nearly there on the wing. Now we're really hit, and yeah, it's not looking good. I also didn't drop all my bombs there. A little bit of a mistake, but we're trying to get back. We have the airfield in sight, and this is where things really start getting interesting, because remember when I said the Russians usually are down to the last couple of planes? Yeah. Well, I got a shock here when the defensive gunners suddenly started firing. I'm obviously sitting ducks at the moment. And yeah, I've got to jump. I got to save my pilot here. And that is an IL-2 who just intercepted me. Can you believe that? An IL-2 went on an offensive patrol against enemy aircraft. That's the Russians on the Tactical Air War server. That's amazing. Now, of course, we're not just flying bombers, we are a mainly fighter-orientated squadron, and you'll see me doing some defensive fighter sweeps here. I believe at this point I'm covering some tanks that make their way to an enemy airfield in order to capture it, and I've spotted a lag there, going in for what I presume is perhaps a reconnaissance flight. Not quite sure what he was doing at this exact point, but I managed to slot in on a 6. Wait until I get close, and hit him quite hard there. However, he still managed to fly there, and he's trying to make a break for it into those clouds. Probably did not exactly see where I was coming from, or only too late. But he knows that I'm here now, and his head is obviously on a swivel. And you can see he sees my second attack coming, makes a left turn, rolls opposite, and I fire a burst. I don't think I actually hit him there, but if I could have maybe connected the cannon round there, I could have done some good damage. But I'm gonna let this guy go, and I'm gonna talk a little bit more of why I'm doing that as I explain how the Tactical Air War server works. But essentially what you're gonna remember is that this river, for example, here, is not just a geographical border. At this point in time, we are controlling the south and western side of this river, and the northeastern side is in enemy hands. Meaning that we have to be a little bit more careful. And actually, no, let's look at this attack first. I spot a lag running after a BF-109, dived into the clouds, bam, hit his tail, probably destroyed his control surfaces there. Not just, you know, the physical control surface, but also his ability to actually control, and he goes down, netting me a kill. And you can see the enemy pilot manages to pull the chute. That is, of course, also important. Now, here's another attack that I have on an enemy LA-5. A lot of people, especially new pilots, wonder how you can track people in clouds and why they're being attacked when they're in the cloud. Well, this is how it works. You can actually see the propeller turning in the clouds there, and as long as you focus on that, you can follow somebody through the clouds. There you can see some of our ground troops. Some of them have already been destroyed. And as I'm slotting here on the LA-5, this really should be a kill. Get a couple of hits there. And I think we hit his fuel tank there, and he's making a break for it once again. Friendly A finally woke up. Well, at least they're doing half of their job. Their heads should be on a swivel all the time, but they sometimes are a little bit slow. And I tried to hunt this LA-5 down. Now, however, as you see there, he is flying over a ground installation. That is in fact a camp that the Russian army has built, and there's quite strong AA. So I break off my attack. I see the LA5 going up. I think some small caliber rounds hit me there from the AA, and I see him going down. I'm not quite sure what he's doing at the moment, but it turned out there was another BF-109 here with me, and he's gonna get bounced by this LA5. This LA5 really did a smart move here, running back to his camp, manages to pick off one of the 109s. I think that guy actually makes it back. Hope he does. And once I launch my second attack, I'm not able to catch this LA5 once again because he runs into his friendly AA cover. Now at this point, let's talk a little bit about victory conditions of tactical air war, because I feel like some of you might feel like this guy was being a coward. No, he was being smart. The way tactical air war server works is, yes, you can just push the contending faction off the map by destroying the airfields and capturing them, but there are also other victory conditions. For example, every nation, the Germans and the Soviet Union, only have 1,300 planes at their disposal. Once the Germans, for example, destroy 1,300 aircraft of the Russians, they immediately win the campaign. I mean, the mission. And each campaign is comprised out of several missions. As well as that, you have only 900 pilots available per faction. And on top of that, you only have 400 tanks. So saving your planes and saving your aircraft and really flying smart is an integral part of tactical air war. And it really doesn't serve anyone, least of all your team, if you're being ruthless and reckless to the point where you forget. Let's see this Peshka being lit up. Yeah, he's not gonna make it home. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that guy as well. But yeah, you can see, for example, this. I'll take this as an example here. You can see this Peshka is messed up beyond belief. Now, the river that you see down there is once again more or less the border of our two nations. And as he's running north, he will be landing at an airfield that is roughly 15 kilometers away from here. I know that at this point in time I've inflicted so much damage on this aircraft that he's most likely not going to make it. So instead of just flying into enemy territory and getting really close to an airfield, which is usually infested with a lot of yaks and lags and LA5s, I'm just going to play it safe. And I'm not really going to bother with hunting him down. And I get rewarded by that, as I am attributed a kill after a couple of minutes. Now here you'll see me doing a little bit of an attack, quite dense flak here with the E7 ground attack mission. Dropped the 250 kilogram bomb. I think I knocked out one AA, and I was the first one in at this point. This tank column was threatening one of our airfields, so it really had to be destroyed. So I'm gonna stick around the area as well, wait for my friendlies to catch up with me, and then destroy a couple of more AAs to make it easier for the Stukas to get in there and maybe do some damages with their gun pods. But let me just take once again that example of the Peshka that we saw earlier. Now, as I said, you want to play it safe sometimes, and you want to make sure that you survive. Now, what this Peshka did is he came from a northern airfield, running clean south into one of our tank columns. He dropped his bombs, and he got a couple of hits, so that was well done. But then he made a 180-degree turn right above the ground troops, and he started running north. Now, he was probably emboldened a bit by the proximity of his own airfield. But if I can just give a tip to any new pilot out there, try to make your escape route in a way that you can make your attack and then use the speed that you gather in your attack to get the hell out. For example, this is what this IL-2 did, that we see here right here. He came in from the west, attacking one of the ground installations that we Germans have set up. He's now running to the east. I'm trying to catch him, getting close, putting him in my reticle here. The sights are on. Couple of bursts, miss, and there we go, nice little damage. Defensive gunner opens up, and the IL-2 is hit pretty badly, and I know this, and I'm kind of hoping that eventually he will go down. However, as I want to make my second attack, I notice there's something wrong with my plane. And you won't see it right here. Oh, maybe you might, but there you go. The defensive gunner actually managed to hit my oil line. And once the plane loses its oil, oh damn, you've got minutes. So I immediately scrambled back to the airfield, trying to save this aircraft, and really make sure that I can use it again in the next mission. Now you can restock on aircraft by making combat sorties or by flying simple transport missions. However, those of course take time, and if you have the ability to save an aircraft, generally I believe that you should take that option. Unless you're in such a dire circumstance where you know you can't get out. And I guess at that point you can fight until the last man, but at this point in time it really wasn't necessary for me to go balls to the walls with that IL-2, since I've already damaged him, hoping maybe that he will go down eventually. Now at this point, we actually have a squadron flyout here. The whole Hydra squad is out. Sheriff, Feraphic and Kurfus flying with me, and we were defending some of the ground troops that you saw me marking there on the ground. And in fact, actually we were not covering the ground forces, we were covering our ground attackers. We were trying to build up a local air superiority here so that our Stukas can take out the tanks, and we also did. This is in the vicinity of Kalach. You can see the airfield right there on my right hand wing, and I think the Russians were not able to use it at this point, simply because we had destroyed most of it. But there we see one of the Stukas coming in, and a lag has spotted him. The Stuka was in fact knocked out in the first burst. I noticed this in the logs afterwards, but he went for a courageous attack on the tanks anyway, sacrificing himself but getting a couple of tanks, so it all evens out. First burst here on the lag, nice little hit, although I came in with a little bit too much speed, nearly rammed into him there. Let's roll over, get on him again. This guy is not gonna escape me this time. Slot in on him, track him down. I think he's seeing me, not quite sure. But he's going evasive. Sight on. And a couple of hits there. It looks like he's still able to fly, but yeah, the damage is severe. And he goes down, and here at this point the Russians are losing a plane and a pilot, which helps our team. And that's a nice little fireball. Another situation here, same flyout. We're still covering our ground attackers at Kalach. There's a single lag here somewhere around, but since we are like 4 109s, it's a little bit hard spotting the guy because, well, if there's 4 of you and 1 of him, he obviously is least likely to be spotted. But then I get a shout by Feraphic, who tells me the lag is on his long 6, shooting. I slot myself on the guy's 6, telling essentially to Feraphic, you know, keep dragging this guy, just keep dragging him. You're safe. And you'll see me positioning the bar of my cockpit there in order to obstruct the sun from blinding me. However, the lag happens to be right at that point as well, so I can't really use that trick. But it's something you can do sometimes. If you want to track somebody in the sun, just put the sun into one of those cockpit bars. And then we're just getting close. Now I have all the time in the world here. I'm just gonna get close. Sneak up to this enemy fighter. He hasn't seen me. He's so intent on getting Feraphic. He's not looking back. And fire. Now I was sure that this guy was a goner. Seeing that rudder fly off, I was pretty convinced that his vertical stabilizers there wouldn't work either, but he manages to catch himself. But the Eagles are circling. Sheriff is on his 6, I'm slotting in once again, getting closer. Couple of bursts. He's going down, and another victory for the squadron. Pulled the chute as well, so that pilot is going to make it out alive. Maybe he gets captured, maybe he's able to return. But yeah, that's the tactical air reserve for you. We've been having a lot of fun on it. It's a very different experience to Wings of Liberty, and I do encourage you to read up on some of the mechanics of the server before you give it a try, especially on the restocking mechanic for the planes. And for the rest, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, share it with your friends. Give me an iron cross with that like button, or don't, that's fair enough as well. Have a great day, good hunting, and see you in the sky.